Hey there, and thank you so much for coming over to Out on a Limb with Gabby Allan. Today, I have the absolute pleasure to be talking with Peggy Jaeger. And we've actually both been with the Wild Rose Press, me under a different name, for we were talking a whole lot of years. Don't know that I'm going to tell you how many.
Me neither. No, keep that under wraps. Keep it under wraps.
Basically, we're the OGs when it comes to the Wild Rose Press. We have been there for a lot of years, a lot of books. And so I am so very pleased to have her on today so we can talk about all things books and writing. So my normal question, the only one I ever prepare, is what is it that you do and how do you do it, Peggy?
Well, first of all, let me just tell you how great I feel being here. I love these kind of forums. COVID made us a different world, and I kind of like this world because I've got business on the top, and I got my pajama bottoms on the bottom. So I'm doing good. I'm doing really good. From the waist up, I look presentable. So what do I do? Okay, so I'll try to do this in a nutshell. I write basically every day. I write romantic comedies. I write contemporary romances. I write a little romantic suspense. And my tagline, just to get an idea of what exactly is in my books, I write about strong women, the families who support them, and the men who can't live without them. And if you ever pick up one of my books, that's what you're going to get in a book. So as far as branding and consistency goes, that's a Peggy Jaeger book in a nutshell. Strong women, families, and men.
So when you say that you write romantic comedies and contemporary romances and romantic suspense with that kind of tagline, what you're saying for people who are, completely into the book world, what that means is that every single book, no matter what the outer shell is, those are the things that they're going to get in the heroines, and the heroes that you're writing is the strong women with the families who support them, and then the men who can't live without them.
Correct. That's the core value. That's the core of every single book that I write. I couldn't write a weak woman. When I was 15, 1,000 years ago, and I picked up like a Dame Barbara Cortland book in the library once. The heroine literally made me cringe because she was so weak, like weak-willed, meek-spoken.
Yes.
You could just look at her and see a mouse.
Yes.
I have never met a woman like that. I don't know that I want to. I mean, I was a nurse for 175 years. I've met a lot of different kind of women. I've met battered women. I've met CEOs, CFOs. I've met regular Joe women, and I have never met a weak one in all of that. So I can only ever write about what I know, and that's strong women. Yeah. And I love families. To me, a family is the core of who you are. So to have a supportive family is what makes, I think, a strong woman. And who doesn't want to have a man say that he can't live without you?
Absolutely.
I mean, that's it in a nutshell. So yes, if I write a romantic comedy, that's what you're going to get. If I write a romantic suspense, the two people in those books, that's what you're going to get.
So what do you think is the difference between a rom-com and a contemporary romance? Like, what's your line there?
Well, the obvious answer is you write a romance or you write a comedy, and when you combine them, you write a romantic comedy.
Right.
So obviously the stupid answer for me would be that it's funny.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. But in every little bit of funny, there's always some sad. Yeah. So when I write contemporary romances, it's basically a story about two people who shouldn't be together for whatever reason, external or internal reasons, but something has brought them together, and they're going to find their happily ever after. In a romantic comedy, you're going to do the same thing, and you're going to have a lot of laughs with it. So like I've had, most of my romantic comedies are usually about women who are very flawed or have bad things happen to them. Okay. I have a whole series called .com Girls, where all the women are rich now. They came from richness, like they were Park Avenue daughters, and then something happened, like a Bernie Madoff kind of a thing happened. Okay. They lost all their money, and now they had to come back to it. They had to earn it all back. All of those women are snarky. Yes. They're smart. Yes. They don't suffer fools. They can cut you with a knife, or they can cut you with a butter knife. And they do it with laughter. And that's how they get through the day. So those are my comedies. So you don't, and then I have a whole family series called the San Valentinos. They're all Christmas books about a large loud and loving Italian family, and just writing the dinner conversation is what makes this a comedy. Because if you ever grew up in an Italian family, you can tell I talk with my hands.
Right.
You know that there's a lot of crazy that goes down at a during a pasta bowl dinner. So that's what makes it funny for me.
That is awesome. I love it. I love it. So how many books do you have out?
Right now, 32, and I have 3 more coming out before Christmas. 7 online for next year. I don't know if that's going to come. I don't know if that's going to come to fruition, but okay. So it'll be like close to 40.
Wow. Those 7, when you say that you don't know if it's going to come to fruition, are those self-published as opposed to being with the Wild? Oh, okay.
Both.
Oh, both. Okay.
Some are self-published and some are with the Wild Rose Press. And it's funny because it's the ones with the Wild Rose Press that I'm like, the self-publishing ones, you can publish them faster.
Yeah.
And sometimes when I have a whole series in my head that I want to get it down on paper, in my case, a laptop, I want to do that now, and I don't want to have to stop and write something that's contracted. Because I want to do this now and get it out there. But we'll see. I mean, there's a lot going on in my life right now too, so we'll just see what happens.
That's all right. We'll be here for it. So how do you decide like what you send off to the Wild Rose Press and what you choose to self-publish since you're hybrid?
Right. Well, and I love that word. I always think of like, Star Trek.
As long as you're not wearing a red shirt, I think you're okay.
With a little emblem on the side. How do I decide what to send? Okay, so everything that I've written for the Wild Rose Press has been series. My very first book, when the publisher, I had won a contest, and the publisher of the Wild Rose Press was Rhonda Penders. She was my judge. So she sent me an email and said, I was your judge. I loved your, what you sent. Do you have anything more? I said, well, there's actually 5 books tied to this family. So she goes, well, send me the first one and we'll go from there. So they published that whole series.
Awesome.
And then, what's the next one? Then I started to write a romantic suspense / culinary. It was about chefs and stuff. So that was another series that they took. So my self-published stuff started out as single titles. And then I like friends and I like families. So I would have people say to me, oh, can we get so-and-so's book next?
Yeah.
I'm like, well, hadn't really planned on that, but, what the hell? Let's give it a try.
Why not?
So now everything is a series. And also for the Wild Rose Press, you know this as one of their authors. Every couple of months, they'll put out a call for a new series that they're starting. So I've been in their 3 Wishes series, as I believe you were. Not 3 Wishes. The
Valentine's Day.
The Valentine. Thank you. Yes. What was that called? What was that called?
Candy Heart.
Candy Hearts. Yeah. So I was in Candy Hearts. I believe you were too.
Yep. And I actually had you on my blog.
That's right. Way 100 years ago. So Candy Hearts was one, and then they did the Dearborn Inn. Okay. I signed on for that one too.
And you were in that.
I was in that, and then they did the ice cream one scoop or 2. I was in that. So I've been in 3 of their own series in addition to all of mine. So how do I decide it? Usually when I come up with a character that has a family, I'm always thinking, well, that one needs a love interest and that one needs to be happy and this one needs a divorce. She needs somebody else. So
are you doing the cookies one?
No. You know why? Because I have so many commitments. Like I said, I already have 7 for next year. That I couldn't really fit one more in the time frame. But totally some of the covers and some of the premises,
they're adorable.
Adorable. I think they're going to do really well with that series.
Oh yeah, absolutely. The covers that I've seen so far, I'm just like, maybe I should write one because I really want to cover.
I have to be honest.
Give me the cover.
I have to be honest. I've been with 3 publishers and self-publishing. I'm Wild Rose Press, Kensington, and Limitless. My favorite covers have been the Wild Rose Press, and I'm not just saying that because we're sisters.
I got you.
Rose. I think their graphic designers really listen to you when you say, this is what my heroine looks like, and this is what she does, and this is what my hero looks like, and this is what I'd like to see him. My bridal series, A Match Made in Heaven, that the final book just came out with them, those covers have won awards. One of them is up for a Roan Award. For Diana Carlisle for the cover, and I'm just thrilled.
Yeah.
Just
well,
thrilled.
I mean, and that's it. A cover is very important. I mean, when you have somebody trolling through, and they're trolling, and trolling through means something different now than it did when I would have.
I know what you meant though. When you're going like this in Amazon,
right? When you're just
flipping the pages,
glancing through, or if you're on someone else's page, at the bottom it says people who bought this also bought this, like. The one that catches your eye is the one that you're not going to look at all 14 books that are listed down there. But if there's one and you're like, ooh, I like that cover, you're going to click on it just to at least look at it. And then that may lead you to buy it. Whereas if your cover's not good, or if it's not showing what it is that they might like about that kind of romance, you're not going to get the click through. And if you don't get the click through, then they're never even going to know if they would have liked your book, because they may have loved it, but because it didn't have a very good cover, they didn't take a chance on it.
There are some authors I've seen that they just do the title of their book and their name in a black screen, so you don't know what it is. I'm like, you're really taking a chance,
right? I don't want a mystery box.
I know, you're right. This is not Blind Date with a Book.
Right.
I want to know
that's at the library. That's at the library. That's not
I want to know what I'm getting here. So if I had any advice for people that want to publish on their own, Jesus, spend some money on a good cover design. Yes. Or if you're a graphic designer, or you know somebody, do it that way.
Yeah. That's, and I mean, I chose to do some self-publishing because I was going a little bit outside of what I could expect from the Wild Rose Press. I'm not going to expect them to put a book out every other month. They have a lot of other stuff going on, and I knew what I wanted to do. So I was like, okay, you know what? I'm going to go ahead and do these myself and see what happens. And I've enjoyed it, but I also do really like having somebody else give me a cover that's like, here you go, and I'm like, I can't wait to see that on a table. Because I do a lot of conventions and a lot of like book signings and stuff, and so with that, I also want a cover that people like are buzzing by, and then they come back because they're like, oh, what is this one about? And I'm like,
you want an eye-catching cover.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's important. I've been with I did the Wild Rose Press, I did Dramar Publishing, which was a super small publisher out of Maryland. I do Kensington now, and then I also was with E. Harlequin for 2 books. And it does make a difference, I mean, for some of the bigger publishers, you're just going to be given the cover. Like, you can say with Kensington, I've sent them pictures, and sometimes they've done a cover just like I asked them to. But it turned out a little different than I was expecting. With E. Harlequin, they just kind of were like, here's your cover. And I was like, oh, okay, well, it's fabulous because it's a bare naked back of a man with a big, huge tattoo on it. So I'm not going to complain. But, you do, when at a smaller publisher, for anyone who's listening, for a smaller publisher, there are sometimes there are more things that you can adjust in. Although ultimately, I will say, when you're filling out the form for the Wild Rose Press, they do say, we absolutely will take your thoughts into we'll consider them, absolutely, but ultimately the Wild Rose Press knows what's selling. And so like for a while there were a lot of covers with like a cityscape on the bottom and like the banner in the middle with the title, and then on top it was like the 2 people like kissing or next to each other. And then that changes. Like I had covers where it was their heads were cut off, the top was the title, the bottom was like them holding each other, and then the bottom was my name. So it just kind of depends on where you're at. But I have yet exactly, and I have yet to think, I don't really want to sell that.
I've been so lucky too. The funny thing about being a hybrid is next year I have a new series coming out self-published that I'm writing, and it's about a wedding planner in a small town. And all the cover I haven't written the books yet; they're plotted. I haven't written the books, but I have all my covers, and I made the covers myself. And the funny thing is, the ideas for the covers sparked because my daughter got married in 2020, and one of the pictures that her photographer took was the most stunning picture I've ever seen. For me, it was my daughter holding her bouquet, and it was just from the neck to like belly button level. But you see the detail of the flowers, you see her ring, and you see her gown, and visually it's stunning. So I said to my daughter, would you mind if I used one of your wedding pictures for one of my covers? And she said, as long as my face doesn't show. But she said the thing that you have to realize is the photographer owns those pictures. So so long story short, back and forth, for my birthday this year, my daughter bought me the rights to that cover. So
I love it.
I do too. The first cover that's coming out next year is my daughter.
That's
I
awesome.
said, you're going to be immortalized on the cover of a book. Nobody's going to know it's you because they can't see your face. But everything else is you forever. And the photographer was so tickled pink that somebody would even ask them. I said, you know what? This may be another career for you.
Yeah.
I mean, truthfully, this may be like a side career because I'll be honest with you, to buy the rights to the cover was not inexpensive.
Right.
But it's mine. So that's what I feel good about.
Yeah.
And it's just another career path. But so you had asked before what sparks, what do you want to make a romantic comedy? What do you want to make a romance? These will all be contemporary romances.
Okay.
But the people in them are funny.
Oh, nice.
So you can find funny in everyday life.
Absolutely.
You go to Panera, you can write a whole book about the people you see online in Panera.
Yes.
So,
yes. So, sometimes I'm like, I'm supposed to be writing, but I'm people watching instead.
You're having too much fun.
I'm eavesdropping, and I'm like, what? Wait, you didn't finish your story. You're not allowed to go to the bathroom until you tell me what happened.
Don't you do that anyway? I mean, I get a lot of my characterizations from being a voyeur.
Absolutely.
And, I'm very, very good about it. They don't even know I'm sitting there pretending to type or pretending to be on my phone, just like watching what's going on.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Like, it's like non-criminal stalking. It's okay.
Right. And I mean, the thing is that there are only so many people I know. There are only so many people that I interact with. I need outside influences to give me the different kind of characters so that I'm not writing the same person over and over and over again. I'm closing in on 50 books here. And, I don't want to write the same heroine in 50 books and just change her name. You know what I mean? Like, I really do want to bring a different person. I write mostly series. I'm trying to think if there's anything I've ever written. There was one. The very first book I ever put out with the Wild Rose Press was a single title. I never did anything else with that. That's it. Everything else, I get the same thing where I write the single title and they're like, well, what about the best friend? And I'm like, what about the best friend? And they're like, well, I want her to, and I'm like, oh, I didn't think, okay, let me see what I can do. But then sometimes I already have other things going on, so then I have to come back to it. And of course, I'm always happy to come back to it. I'm happy to hear from people that they enjoy the books. I get a lot of your characters make me feel like I want to find them and go have coffee with them.
Yeah, best friends.
Yeah. I mean, and that's a beautiful thing. And I know, like, some people don't have super awesome families, and so when they read books about families that are super awesome but they're also flawed, I think sometimes it gives them a sense of belonging.
Validation
absolutely.
To how they feel.
Definitely. Absolutely. And I'm all about that. Like, I love getting reader emails that are like, oh my gosh, this was so much fun, and I loved the character because she owned her flaws, and I don't feel like I have to be perfect. And I'm like, you don't have to.
Perfect. You don't have to be perfect.
Who's perfect? No one is perfect. But when you're doing the couples, because you said, characters come to you. So when you're doing couples, do you get both of them at the same time, or do you come across a woman that you want to tell her story, and then you kind of go looking for the guy that wouldn't be able to live without her?
So, that's great. That's a great question. That goes to the question too, what comes first for you, character or plot?
Yeah.
For me, and for you probably too, because we're people watchers,
yes.
Characters are always first for me.
Oh, yeah.
So again, I'm going to use Panera because I go there a lot with my girlfriends for lunch.
That's all right. Maybe they'll sponsor the video.
That'd be lovely.
I'm totally
just
kidding.
Spell my name right and say it right. That's all I care about. And maybe like a free cookie when I go.
Oh, yeah. A free cookie would be nice.
So when I'll use Panera as the example. So I'll be in Panera and I'll see, the biggest example for me is I'll see like somebody online waiting to pick up their lunch.
Yeah.
So just take a normal middle-aged 30, 35, 40-year-old woman. Yeah. She's constantly doing this.
Right.
Well, that tells me a couple of things about that person.
Yeah.
Tells me she's either waiting to meet somebody for lunch. Okay. Yes. She's waiting till they get there. She's texting with her kid who's maybe in college and is having a crisis during her lunch hour. She's meeting her lover.
Right.
And it's all done by phone.
Right.
Nowadays, there's no, you can erase them. So it tells me a lot about the person. So if I see this person and I see their idiosyncratic quirks, what they're doing, they're nervous, they're they're harried, they're looking at their iWatch, whatever. I'll come up in my head as I'm eating my chicken salad with a backstory.
Whole story.
Yeah, a whole story. And based on that, then I'll think, who would compliment her as a hero?
Yeah.
So if she's buttoned up and tight and always on her iWatch, who would compliment her? Well, her opposite. A foil. Somebody who wears flannel and is laid back. Who doesn't own a watch.
Right.
Who doesn't know what time it is if you ask him.
Who leaves his phone in the car in the visor.
Or doesn't have one.
Okay. No, or
he doesn't have it yet.
Yeah.
You can't get, he's got an old-fashioned beeper. That's how people get in touch with him. I mean, so that's what I do. So it's always character for me. And, one or another will come to me. I was actually watching, in a former life, I used to love to write about serial killers. In fact, I just became a Kindle Vella author.
Okay.
I'm publishing all my old serial killer things.
Awesome.
So what I was going to say was, in a former life, I actually was a nurse as well, and I took care of prisoners. Sometimes prisoners would come to the ward for surgery or whatever, and they have the most amazing stories to tell you. You take it with a grain of salt because you don't know what they're just prevaricating or what, but those are the kind of characters that make me want to go back for more.
Yeah.
So if I find somebody in Panera who sparks that interest, I want to go back for more. Yeah. And I want to know about you. Yeah. And I have no problem talking to a rock. I'll talk to anything, anybody. I've got that face that people come to me.
There's like a stamp on our forehead that says, please talk to me.
I was grocery shopping this morning and I had my mask on because I'm terrified of this variant. So I'm putting my groceries in my cart, and out of the God blue, this guy who is probably 30 comes walking to me and says, "Can I ask you a question?" And he's holding an egg sandwich.
Okay.
This is a true story. And I'm like, yeah. The first thing I do is look around to make sure I'm not going to get jumped. I'm going to jump. I live in like white bread America. But anyway, so he comes to me and he says, "Does this look like plastic to you?" And he picks up the egg. It's like a fried egg sandwich.
Yeah.
And it does. He says, I don't understand this. I thought it was like grease that got fried, but I'm looking at it. It looks like plastic. I said, I think it is. And I said, I think you need to bring that back inside.
Right.
As he's walking away from me, I'm watching him walk in and thinking, okay, I got to write a story about you. Or I got to put you in a book.
Yeah.
I have to put you as like a quirky character that walks in and walks out. The kind of character, we all know this person who comes to you and says, smell this. Right. We all know somebody like that, right?
My father. My father
know somebody like that.
I'm just like,
what do you think
that
this
is
looks
horrendous.
like?
Why would you bring that to me? Are you kidding?
That's the way my mind works. So it's about character first, last, and always to me.
Yeah.
If you have good characters, the story will come.
Absolutely.
You build it, they will come. If you have good characters, they will come.
I love it. I love it. So do you, I know that there are some authors who worry about being in too many places as far as genres go because they're afraid that there won't be the crossover. that if a romantic comedy reader is not necessarily going to read a romantic suspense.
Correct.
Although I find that less in romance. I do find that there are a lot of romance readers who are like, I don't care as long as they're falling in love and I love it, I'm on board. But do you ever take that into consideration, or do you just kind of like, hey, you know what, it's a romantic suspense, you know that when you read a Peggy Jaeger that this is what you're getting,
what you're gonna get,
and you'll come along for the ride? Or do you weigh that and say, well, I've had 2 romantic comedies and I did 2 contemporary romances, I really should probably try to get a romantic suspense out because I want to keep those readers?
No, it doesn't. It's never a thought in my mind, because to me, everything is story. Now, funny thing, I actually thought where you were going was you were going to ask about pen names.
Oh, okay.
We all know Jane Ann Krenz.
Yes.
Right. Okay. So you know she has 2 alter egos.
Yes.
Jane Castle and Amanda Quick.
Yes.
So I didn't know that for a very long time.
Okay.
All I knew was I liked these 3 authors.
Okay.
I love Nora Roberts.
Yeah.
I love Nora Roberts. When she started writing her in-depth series under the name J.D. Robb,
yeah,
I didn't know that.
Right.
But I knew that I liked these 2 writers.
Yeah.
So when I found out that Jane Ann Krenz and Amanda Quick and Jane Castle were the same person, but they write in different genres, I was like, this is why people have pen names, and I would never do that. Yep. Same thing with Nora Roberts. She wanted to write the J.D. Robb series under her own name. And it was her editor, her publishing house, that said, you can't, because you're known for this. Well, here's the thing. The first J.D. Robb book I read, I said, oh, this sounds an awful lot like Nora Roberts. No lie. And then I found out it was Nora Roberts. So it's never a thought in my mind that I have to write 2 romantic comedies under Peggy Jaeger and then a romantic suspense to keep the Peggy Jaeger romantic suspense people. Okay. My thought is this. If you like the story, if you like the writing, doesn't matter what I'm going to write. You're going to like it. And that's the way I am. Now, maybe I'm selling myself a false bill of goods. I don't know. But I will say this. If I go to my Amazon listings and I see the consistency across the board of the number of reviews, the number of sales, I think I'm right. Because there's no discrepancy. My romantic comedies sell the same as my contemporaries that sell the same as my romantic suspense. So the same people are reading all 3.
Which is good.
Which is great. Or there's a little niche of the same number of people that read it either way.
Or there's some crossover and there's some niche, which is
it's great.
I love because those people also might hopefully will tell their friends, oh my gosh, I know you totally love romantic suspense, you should see this one that I just got, you have to have it. And so then like there's backlist going on. I have the Much Ado About Nauticaling with Kensington under Gabby Allan as a pen name, which I was asked to do as opposed to wanting to do, which is it's fine.
But can I ask, why did they ask you to do that?
So the official party line is that it allows people to know that the Misty Simon cozy mysteries are a little different than the rom cozies that I'm putting up after Gabby Allan. The unofficial party line to some extent is that brick and mortar bookstores buy off of your last numbers.
Correct.
And so if your last numbers are not as high as they would like you to have them, sometimes they will have you start a new name because then you're considered a debut author and you're given a clean slate.
Oh, isn't that interesting? What a great way to manipulate the numbers.
And that is a little bit of an issue for me. So I'm like, I struggled. I struggled at first because I'm like, I'm a debut author after
50 books.
50 books. Like because I actually had somebody on Amazon under reviews from NetGalley, and they were like, this sounds really familiar. I'll be interested to see who this is. And I was like, I really don't want you to be upset. Right. I'm not trying to lie to you, you know? And so at first they wanted to hide it. And then Publishers Weekly outed me. And they were like, this debut novel by Gabby Allan, aka Misty Simon, Tally Graver Mysteries. And I was like, well, what do we do now? And Kensington's like, just roll with it. And I was like, okay, that's fine. I mean, I do think it's a little of both, but I do think, if you read Much Ado About Nauticaling, it's not a whole lot different than the Ivy Morris mysteries that I used to write back in the day. It's not a whole lot different than the Mel Hargrove junkyard mysteries that I've written that are under Adventures in Ghost Sitting. It is a little different than Hallie Graver, simply because there's more romance in it.
Okay.
So we'll see what happens, but I have found that now that people know that I'm both, my backlist has bumped. Because people are like, "Ooh, I like this. I'm going to go back and see what else she's done."
And that's the reason why I never wanted to do a pen name. We live in a very small town, and my husband is a physician, and he's very well known in town. In fact, I worked for the clinic for very many years until I retired, and because I write romance, and we live in a very small New England town, where if you know anything about Yankees, old world Yankees, I don't. They have sex. If they have one child, they had sex once. I mean, it's like that kind of a thing. So when my first book came out, and the local paper did a thing about it, and everybody was excited. Some of my husband's older patients said, this is quote, "How do you feel about your wife writing those kind of books?"
Yes.
And I was like, okay, I'm not writing 50 Shades.
Right.
It's
not smut.
It's not smut. And my response, he was very good about it. My response, if somebody had asked me to that question, I was like, well, how do you think you got here? You didn't have Parents had to have sex once.
Right, at least, unless somebody had a turkey baster. I mean,
and then the response I got to that was, well, you don't have to let it all out there. I said, I don't. You've obviously not read my books, because you would know I don't cross lines. I'm not graphic. I literally show you more emotion than I do part A going into part B going into part C. I mean, let's just think about that. Who wants to read? That's like a textbook. I'm a nurse. I read about that already. I learned how that happens. I read about the emotion of it. So once I got that point across, I don't get funny looks in church anymore. Let's just
there you go. And it is very interesting. People assume that because you're reading romance or writing romance or reading romance, that it must be it gets frowned upon. The genre itself gets frowned upon
because it's women centric. It's a women centric business. The majority of the writers are women, the majority of the readers are women, and the majority of the publishers are men. So, except for Wild Rose. So, because of that, it's been frowned upon, like anything women centric. So you just have to roll with it. In fact, I have a new book that's coming out November 8th or 9th, I can never remember which date, where the woman is a horror writer. Okay. She's like a very well-known horror writer, but she keeps her real name a secret.
Okay.
Because of that, because horror is another genre that is looked down upon. Very. So when the hero finds out who she really is, he loves it because he loves the books. Right. And he even says to her, because you wouldn't tell me who what your pen name is, for some strange reason I figured you wrote, some kind of women's empowering fiction. And the line is, that's a very sexist and chauvinistic thing. Yeah. He's like, unfortunately, I think I'm not the only one that thinks that. Yeah. And it's true. It's true.
It's very interesting, though, because I do find that women's fiction, just women's fiction, does tend to get a different kind of, they get a little more elevation over
because men don't know what women's fiction is.
Yes. And I think the women are not always happy. Because a lot of times in women's fiction,
there's no happily ever after.
Not really. And
there's a resolution. There's a resolution.
Absolutely.
But there's no. They go
it doesn't
off into
have
the sunset,
to be.
Right.
They don't have to have. They don't have to have a good relationship. They don't have. They can just be left sad and alone.
Happy for now. Yeah.
And even happy for now. Yeah. And I think that, I know there used to be. I haven't heard it as much, but it's like that you're writing fantasy, and I'm like, why does it have to be fantasy to end up with somebody who loves you and who can't live without you? Why is that a fantasy?
I'll be very honest about this. I came from divorced parents. I never expected to get married because I wasn't given a good example. I've been married 32 years to the same person.
That is awesome.
My husband introduced this to my first wife, my first and only. I mean, and that's it. We made a commitment. People can find love. And again, women's fiction, men don't know what it is.
Yeah.
You say romance, they've got the image in their mind of Fabio and a woman with half of her dress is off. They've got that image. They've got that image. But women's fiction, you're like, well, that could be a lot of things.
Right.
It could be a story about women.
Yeah, it could be. Well, and I think too that a lot of I think a lot of people get their idea of what a romance is off of movies. If you don't read romance novels, you assume that they're all, monster-in-law. You assume that there's something about Mary. You assume that they're, and they don't necessarily read them because they know that they're not going to be, they might be, unless they're romantic comedies, they're assuming that it's going to be some sappy, ridiculous woman who doesn't know what she wants until whatever. And I'm like, no, wait, can you please at least read it before you decide, judge it? Like, I would really love if you, here's one, just read it over. Open mind. Beautiful thing.
And if you don't like it afterwards, that's fine. At least you tried.
Then there are plenty of books that I don't like. I'm not a huge horror novel fan. I don't like the gore, which is one of the reasons that I write cozy mysteries, is that I get to kill people, but it's not gory.
Correct. And I'm the opposite. I'm the opposite.
And there's, but there are books for everyone. But I would not say, oh, I don't like horror, I never read them. I would say that's not generally my taste, but if somebody were to say this book is awesome, I would try it. You know what I mean? And before I said, ooh, that was a little much for me. I slept with the lights on for the next 7 days. But for the most part, I do try to be open-minded about things. There are certain genres that I'm not huge about. Some of the outlying genres are not something, that I am going to look for, but I'm not going to judge I'm not going to judge all of them on one, because there's every possibility that and especially like you were saying, when you write 3 different genres, if you can pull somebody in with the romantic comedy, hopefully they will then take a chance on your contemporary romance and then take a chance on your romantic suspense, because they do trust you to stick to the core of what you've said you do.
I do. And I'll have that tagline probably until they put me in a grave, because
it'll be on your
my headstone. She wrote about strong women, or she was a strong woman. But I think the problem, there's so many preconceived notions, and we talk as writers, romance writers, we talk about this all the time.
Yeah.
The preconceived notion that we don't write real fiction, or we don't write stuff that the masses can read, or like you said, it's fantasy or escapist fiction. Well, let me just say one thing: fiction is escapist. There's no fiction.
I don't care what you're reading.
It's fiction. It's fiction. Okay, the definition of the word, it is escapist. It's not real.
Exactly.
It boggles the mind. So we started this conversation because I was telling you about all the closed-minded people that thought I wrote those kind of books.
Right.
And I just think as writers, we talk about this so much, and you would think that finally at this point in our lives, we wouldn't have to talk about it anymore. That it would just be accepted, and this is what we write, and we're making But the funny thing is, we're all, not me personally, but we're all laughing all the way to the bank, because romance is still the number one selling fiction in the market today, and that covers all devices. That covers ebooks, that covers print books, that covers audiobooks.
Absolutely.
Within the romance genre, there are so many subgenres. That's another thing that people don't understand.
No, they don't.
You can have your werewolves. You can have your aliens.
Right.
You can have
LGBTQIA plus. Yes.
I'm nervous, and
that's
sometimes
okay. No worries.
I transpose the letters. So it's so sad that people have limited mindsets.
Yeah, I
hopefully
know.
Podcasts like this, and the more we talk about it with the public,
that's what I'm hoping. because I think a lot of us tend to be friends with other romance writers and not necessarily writers outside of the genre. Correct. Because we are judged on what we write. And so like if you don't know a horror writer personally, that may not be somebody that you just brush up against at the library and then strike up a conversation and start having a friendship. And so I think we talk about it a lot, but I don't know that it's always talked about outside of us.
Correct. Unless it's negatively.
And, right. And then you have to run in and you're like, wait. And they don't always want to hear you. So, I mean, we're fighting a good fight as far as
and again, all the way to the bank. So I mean, keep be disparaging, be you, do you. Whatever. I'm still making money.
I got lots of people.
I'm making people happy. Right? You're making people happy.
And that to me means more than anything else. I want people to escape into my books. So I want to take you away like Calgon back in the day. I want I want to take you away. I want to give you a reprieve from whatever you're going through right now and be able to sink into my book and wish that you could be there as, the third wheel or the fly on the wall or whatever. And I want that for you. And so if that means that other people are going to think that I write fluff, have at it.
Who cares? Have at it. I have a very lovely short story about that too, because I feel the same way. If I can make somebody's day a little bit happier because they read some of my words, that I'll go to heaven. I'll take that pennies in heaven. But I have a friend whose mother was dying of brain cancer, and the daughter, in the nursing home, brought my current Christmas book, which is called Mistletoe, Mobsters, and Mozzarella, and it's about an Italian deli. Anyway, Rom-Com. And while she was reading aloud to her mother, the mother laughed at all the funny parts. So she got it, number one. Yeah. But 3 days later, she died.
Yeah.
So
she got levity.
When the girl told me this, I actually had to sit down for a few minutes because the weight of that was really heavy on me. Yeah. I was like, wow, if she had not laughed, how would I have felt? But the fact that she laughed and I was able to give her in her final hours, it sounds cliche, her final hours, a smile and a chuckle.
Absolutely.
That's a very heavy weight.
It's a beautiful thing.
It's a beautiful thing.
It is.
So again, go ahead, all you naysayers. Go ahead, all you people. Go ahead. Just do
have at it. We're going to do us. We're going to do us, and we're going to do it beautifully.
Make people happy.
Absolutely.
That's the name of the game.
I love it. Well, we are right on time pretty much. So I am going to ask you to please tell us, where can we find you and what can we expect next from you?
Okay, so where you can find me, unfortunately, I'm like a tick. I'm everywhere. The easiest place is my Amazon page, Peggy Jaeger. Okay. On Facebook, it's Peggy Jaeger Author. And my website, again, we're going to keep it easy. My website is PeggyJaeger.com. And that's JAEGER. Okay. Jaeger. So what's coming out? I have 3 books coming out before Christmas. I don't have the cover to show you for the last one. But this is my new romantic contemporary romance / women's fiction called Balance. Now, it's got the proof thing around the front. That's not going to be on the book.
That's okay. Very pretty.
Rags to Riches, Riches to Rags books. Takes place in New York, so I call it my New York City romance. Okay. And then that's contemporary. Sorry.
That's okay. No worries.
Live. Yeah, you can tell there's no production team here, folks.
I love that kind of stuff because I think that there are a lot of people who watch these who are like, oh, okay, it's 2 authors. I would never be able to do that. And then something like that happens, and I'm like, it's life. We're all human. That happens.
No production team here, folks. No. This is very low brow.
I don't have any boom lights. We're good.
No cleats. No. So then that's contemporary romance. So then here's romantic suspense. I don't want the light to shine. This is a Pride of Brothers Aiden. The series is called The Pride of Brothers. The first book was Rick. Now this is his brother Aiden. You can't tell this too much because of the lights, but there's a chocolate lab on this cover. I have a chocolate lab. This character of the chocolate lab is based on my chocolate lab.
I love it.
You can tell I have a very strange voice. I have a condition called presbyphonia, which basically means my vocal cords are deteriorating. Oh. So the thought is within 3 to 4 years, I might not have a voice.
Oh
so
my
when
gosh.
we got, okay, it's fine. When we, my husband's happy.
Mine would be too. He's really like, can you write that down on a piece of paper? Because I don't have to hear you anymore. That's good. Thanks.
when we got the puppy, I had just been diagnosed, and I figured, well, this dog is going to be around for 10, 15 years.
Yeah.
Why train her in commands if I can't talk? So we taught her sign language. So
we have
verbal with hand signals. So she knows about 20, 25 of them now. The dog in the book does too, and it's an integral plot point in the book. So prior to that one's coming out September 8th, and unfortunately this one's coming out September 1st. That was a poor production schedule.
And you're going to be busy.
I know. The last book is coming out November 8th or 9th. I can't remember which one. It's called Fixing Christmas. That's the one that has my horror writer in it.
Yeah.
And the hero is like a Jethro Gibbs type character.
Oh my God.
So he's a handyman.
All right, I'm gonna be buying that one right away.
I like writing about older people. I'm way older than any of these people, but he's 45 and she's 38.
Okay.
So it's nice to get the middles in there.
Yeah.
A little more seasoned. But he's definitely Jethro. I based him on Jethro Gibbs. So if you like NCIS, you're gonna like that.
Go for it. That is awesome.
PeggyJaeger.com, and then my Amazon page. Peggy Jaeger is the easiest place.
Okay. Well, I am super excited, and I cannot tell you how much I appreciated seeing your name in my inbox and saying, "Hey!" And I was like, "Oh!"
Was I like the first one? Because the minute I saw that, I was like, "Oh, I gotta type her right away." I was on my phone. I ran up to my office and I said, right away.
No, that's awesome. And I would be more than happy to have you back next year when your next series of books is rolling through and you want to bring them to us, and we'll talk again. This was a blast, and I so appreciate everything that you've done. I love that we're both still in the TWRP is what I call it.
And I call it twerp.
Yeah, twerp. And that we're still roses. And, for anyone who's listening, if you are interested in information, please do go look at their submission page. They have some really great ideas and guidelines as far as what they'd like to see.
And series. They have a lot of good, Wild Rose Press series. Like we discussed, the ice cream one, the Dear Brian. Really and the it's very good for it's great for new authors.
Yeah,
get a foot in the door.
Absolutely.
Foot in the door is the best thing you can do.
Absolutely. And then, as I offer on everyone, if you have any questions for Peggy or myself, as far as writing or anything that you'd like to learn, something that maybe we could help you with, please drop them down into the comments below. I will make sure that Peggy sees them, and we'll try to get you as much information because we want you to learn what you want to learn. So thank you, Peggy. Really, this has
been more than a pleasure.
So much fun. And I will see you later. And thank you again for being Out on a Limb with Gabby, Allan. And I hope you guys have an amazing evening.
Take care, everybody. Thank you.
Bye-bye.